Hey everybody, Jonathan Crow here, Director of Community at NinjaOne, and I have with me the man, the myth, the legend, the one and only Jeff Hunter, Ninja Wizard Extraordinaire. Jeff, Happy New Year. It's a little late to say that, but it's been a while. We were saying we haven't seen each other since December or November or something. So anyway, great to see you.
Good to see you too. Hope you're staying warm up in the northeast of the United States.
Yes, we got about 2 feet, and I'll share. I'll pull it up towards the end here. We made an igloo for the kids, and so we're making the most of it. But today we're not here to talk about igloos. We're here to talk about folks are just so tired, Jeff. You could say they're fatigued.
You could say
By alerts, too often the systems that we put in place to protect us, to let us know what's going on, they overwhelm us. And the last thing any of us need in this year of our Lord 2026, yes, 2026, is to be overwhelmed with additional information. And so, that's what we're here to talk about is how to combat alert fatigue. And of course, that can come from various different places. Endpoint security being a big one, but obviously NinjaOne itself, there's a lot of things that people set up. They want to be monitoring systems and they want to be kept informed on what's going on. But if you're not careful or if things are set up the wrong way, that can easily become a lot of noise that you have to filter through. Luckily, you're going to teach everyone how to resolve all of that.
yes, that is my goal. You mentioned obviously the amount of noise that there is and trying to find the signal in that noise. So what is actually going to be valuable to you? This is a topic that we have touched on a lot because it's a popular one. Everybody is very interested in streamlining their operations. Everybody is interested in cutting down on the number of alerts or the number of tickets that they see. It would be great to automate those. And when we talk about these situations in the past, one question that we always get towards the end when we open it up for the Q&A is, where do I get started? What do I do? And I think that comes because there is a bit of a blank slate syndrome, tabula rasa, that the empty white sheet of paper with nothing on it is intimidating and you don't really know where to start. And so today, this is kind of a different take on, again, the similar topic of how do we reduce alerts and reduce tickets. But instead, I want to focus on more how do we analyze what the alerts are that are causing us a lot of work. And then how can we go ahead and maybe take a more top-down systemic approach towards analyzing all of this and determining when machines are becoming too noisy. Maybe we need to go ahead and fine-tune some of those alerts. And then we'll get into some maybe practical recommendations of how you can resolve some common troubleshooting scenarios using NinjaOne. Now, the very first thing that I say when people ask, how do I actually get started here, is I say, look at your tickets. Look at your tickets, in this case, Ninja Ticketing over here. And the reason I say look at your tickets is because tickets are designed to go ahead and track time. And so that, I think, is the really valuable element of your ticketing system, is that it is going to let you know where you are spending time. That time on the help desk is like a currency. And so where are you spending that time? The ticketing system is designed to track that. And so I think you are going to get the most use out of your out of the data that's in your ticketing system, because you're going to have that element of time investment as a metric when you track. Now, the difficulty is that everybody uses different ticketing systems. We might want everybody to use NinjaOne ticketing, but everybody gets ingrained in ecosystems. And so we end up in something like ConnectWise Manage or Autotask or ServiceNow or Zendesk. And so all that is being powered by your conditions. So for the most part, when we go into a policy, you have your conditions and your compound conditions. This is what is going to create an alert. And then that alert, when it triggers, could also create a ticket. And again, this could be in Ninja Ticketing. It could be in an integrated service like ConnectWise Manage. It could be in anything that accepts a webhook, an email, an SMS message. It could be Slack. It could be PagerDuty. And so this is how we are sending those alerts out to other devices. So when we talk about where to get started, if tickets isn't an option because I can't build something that analyzes the tickets for every ticketing system out there, the next best option is the alerts. So when the conditions trigger, they trigger as alerts right here. We can see them, everything that is triggered right here. Uh, so we're going to use this as our focal point. This is our prism that we're going to be looking at rest of our Ninja environment through is which devices have the most triggered alerts, which of the alerts are the type that trigger the most frequently, and then how can we go ahead and bring that information back into NinjaOne so that you can start to, hammer down the crooked nail or the nail that's sticking up, and get everybody into compliance. So to start with, we're going to use the NinjaOne API. I'm going to drag over my VS Code window here. Sorry if this is a little small. Let me see if I can make it a little bit bigger here. And so this first script that I have, and I will post this on my GitHub later, and I'll make sure that we post a link in the Discord as well to these scripts. But the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to look at all of my NinjaOne activities. Activities in NinjaOne are like logs. It indicates when something has happened. And one of the classifications of an activity is a condition, when the condition triggers and when the condition is going to reset. And so what I'm doing here is I'm looking at all of my activities over the previous 30 days. And I'm looking for any alerts that have triggered, any conditional alerts that have triggered. And so what this will do for me in this first script here is it gives me the view of which devices have the most alerts that are triggering. Now, this is something, if I switch back into NinjaOne, this is something that you can get via the regular report that we see right here. There is an alerts section, and it will show you all the various alerts that have triggered right here across all our devices, and then our top devices that trigger the most alerts. So you do get this information here. What's nice about this is that this traverses organizations. So if you're looking for all the devices across all of your organizations in NinjaOne, this is nice because you get that global view here. And so we can see device 4, device 5. These are by far the biggest offenders, over 4,000, almost 5,000 conditions that have triggered in a month. And we can see the rank here as well. We've put the where they rank overall in all the devices that trigger an alert, which ones are have the most alerts. So this is useful. You get this ability to sort of just view and oversee this data. However, my personal preference is to go ahead and try to take this information and bring it back into NinjaOne so that we can address this more fluidly and more intelligently. And so my other Grants workstation needs some work. It does. And we are going to take care of that today. But our next step here is to actually go ahead and take this information and insert it into NinjaOne in custom fields. And I'm creating 5 custom fields here for this particular script, but there is a 6th field as well that I'll mention in a little bit. And so what we're doing here is every device is going to have these fields on them. Total conditions that have triggered. This is total conditions that have triggered over the past 30 days across all devices. So just the total number of alerts that you've gotten in NinjaOne. Or sorry, I take that. This is the total alert for total conditions for this device. So each individual device, you'll see the total number of conditions that have triggered. We will also see the total number of alerting devices. So this is the number of every device: Windows, Mac, Linux, NMS device, guest VM, hypervisor, anything that has a condition that can trigger. I think the only things that would be excluded from this would be probably Android and iOS devices because they don't have conditions. But everything that has triggered a condition in the previous 30 days, we add up all those devices. And so we get the total number of alerting devices here. We then also have the device alert rank. How problematic is this device in the grand scheme of things? We know Grant's workstation, that's number 1. They are the biggest offender. Obviously, based off of the total number of alerting devices here, if you are, let's say, 31 out of 31, that means you have the fewest number of triggered conditions over the previous 30 days for any device that has triggered an alert. Now, below that, we have our HTML fields. And so this is going to be denser information. Everything up here is basically just an integer. But if we go down here, we get the HTML fields. And so in this case, we have an alert heat map. This is going to show us which days of the month where we have the alerts trigger, or how many alerts trigger on that device. And then we have the most frequent alerts. So over that previous 30 days, how many, or what is a table that shows us all the various alerts or conditions that triggered for this device, what the name of it was, and how frequently it occurred. So we can really drill down and see what is the type of condition that is generating the most noise. This is an API script. I see a question in the chat. This is an API script. This would be something that is going to be designed to work on an API server, and I'll make that clear in the documentation that I put out later today. So this script right here, I could go ahead and run it. It's going to retrieve all the activities over the previous 30 days. I do specify that 30-day number somewhere in here. And so you can go ahead and modify that if you want to go ahead and get a broader or more limited set of data. So right here, I think it's probably set near the top, but it'll just be a configurable option here for how many days you want to look for all this data. So let's go ahead and switch back in the Ninja and let's take a look at what this actually results in. Let's go to an individual device right here. Let's pick Grant's workstation. We know that's a bad offender here. So let's go ahead and go into Grant's workstation. What I've done is I've set up a custom field tab called device alerts, and then I have added all those custom fields that I mentioned earlier to it. And so I can go ahead and click on that device alerts tab. And so right here, this has all been populated by the NinjaOne API. This device has a total of 4,869 conditions that have triggered. Again, this is over the past 30 days. That ranks 2 out of the 31 total devices that have triggered an alert in the past 30 days. What is the nature of the alerts that are triggering all the time? If we go down here, we can see the most common one is low disk space, and that has triggered just over 2,000 times over there on the right-hand side. This right here is an indication that we need to either free up disk space on this machine, we need to increase the overall capacity of the drive, or we need to tweak the individual metric that we are alerting on in order to reduce the amount of noise here. 2,000 different disk-free space alerts. I don't think that's doing anything for anybody. And so to modify this, we could go into settings for this particular device here. We could go into policies, and we could go into our device overrides. And at this point, we could go down to our low disk space condition right here, and we could tweak this. We could go ahead and say the threshold is actually going to be 10%, or it's going to be 5%. And so that is going to reduce the number of times that this alert is going to trigger. And again, this is circumstantial. This is something where you have to know what the lay of the land is for your device. Is it feasible to, again, upgrade the capacity of the hard drive, get a bigger hard drive in there? Is this device, does it have something, environmentally wrong with it that means that it fills up on space all the time? I managed servers that held security camera footage, and so they were by design always full on footage. They never wanted to delete anything, and so you just always had a full disk, and then it would just overwrite the oldest content as new footage was being recorded. And so I spoke with somebody earlier this week. They had a similar situation here where they just have devices that are servers that they can't upgrade, they can't increase the space. They're sort of running as intended, as designed to run just very, very light on the amount of free space. And so modifying this on a per device level, that works very well. You can see here that we do have some options to try and free up some space here. So in our case, we're taking what I would say is maybe the most basic action you could possibly take, which is deleting temporary files, emptying the recycle bin, and then initiating a reboot here. You could also do something like run the Windows cleanup right here. This is another native script in NinjaOne. And you could use this as an attempt to go ahead and clear up disk space on the device. I will say that in my more modern experience, this becomes difficult because people just retain too much stuff on their devices. And so there's not really a lot of juice to squeeze by emptying the recycle bin or deleting temporary files. there's not a, the half life on that is short. You can do that once, and then it's not really going to be effective for you in all likelihood for a little while after that. But we could also go ahead and do something like prompt the end user. We have a display pop-up right here. This could be used to remind somebody to reboot their device. In this particular option, I would go ahead and customize the message here and say, you're low on free disk space. You need to delete some files in order for your machine to operate effectively. And so you're kind of taking the onus off of the technician, off of the help desk, and you're putting it back where it really belongs, which is going to be on the end user of that device. And so that's a great option there. Always make sure, by the way, I try to, anytime we show the display pop-up script, I like to get ahead of potential questions and point out, you need to run this as the current logged on user. If you run this as system, a person is not going to see it. Only the system will see it, and you don't care about what the system thinks for the most part. So we would want to run this as the current logged on user here. That is what is going to make that visible to your end user so they actually see this. Now, obviously, I made that as an individual device tweak here. I would say that if you are seeing low disk space alerts broadly across many of your devices, at that point, I would want to make a more systemic change at the policy level. And so this could be either creating a separate policy with a different free disk space threshold, or it could be modifying the existing threshold that is in the general policy assigned to the devices. Again, that's going to be circumstantial. It's going to be environmental. It's going to depend on the particular situation that you are in. But that is how we would sort of tackle the idea of addressing a 1 or 2 off device issue versus something that is more broad and impacting many devices. So I just want to kind of clarify that there. So let's go back to our device alerts right here. We can see that we need to tweak that threshold right here. We can also see this user initiated log off right here. We have almost 2,000 occurrences of this. This could be that I maybe don't care about monitoring log offs. I might want to go ahead and actually just eliminate this from the policy because I don't really care about log offs. Or I might investigate why there are such a high number of user log offs on this particular device relative to my other machines. Is there maybe some sort of issue with the NinjaOne remote here where we're logging out after the end user after the connection has ended? And it doesn't seem like we're doing that here. We're not logging out the remote user, so that doesn't seem to be the issue. But I would otherwise want to go ahead and investigate, why am I seeing so many of these log off events right here? And then also reevaluating if this is even a relevant alert. I'm struggling in the moment right now to think of why I would have this here. So this is certainly an option where I'd say, hey, maybe we need to go ahead and get rid of this. Below that, we can see our last patch condition, no OS patch installed in the last 30 days, 835 occurrences of this. And I would imagine if I go to other devices, let's go ahead and pick a different machine here. Let's pick Matt's laptop. And let's look at the corresponding device alerts here. We can see here that no patch installed in the last 30 days. This is probably the single biggest alert, single condition that is impacting most of my devices. Most of my devices, they're going to have somewhere in the 70 plus count of this condition triggered. Now let's go down a little bit further and see if we can find out why that is. And so this is the heat map. And so this is showing us what days all of our various alerts are triggering and how many of those alerts are triggering every day. Right here, we can see on the 5th of January, we had 1 alert. If we go down a little further, we can see that we start to have multiple alerts triggered each day. Just eyeballing this, I say this probably ends up adding up to most of those OS patch conditions that we saw earlier. And so it looks like that's probably triggering 6 times a day. Just again, doing the basic math on that, if we look at this condition, right down here, no patch installed in 30 days, we can see the reset interval on this is every 4 hours. This triggers 6 times every day. That math checks out. Even I can figure that out. And so what we can do here is we might want to go ahead and make it so that this is something that needs to be manually reset. Or we might want a longer reset interval so we're not getting quite as many alerts. With the reset interval right here, whenever you select a drop-down menu option here, it's going to wait those 4 hours, and then it's going to reset the alert. and then the alert will re-trigger if you still have not installed an operating system patch in the past 30 days. If you have installed a patch in that interim period from when it triggered and then when it reset, it would not re-trigger again. So the absence of that alert, that's the indication that this issue has been resolved. So there's two options here. One is to modify your reset interval so you don't get quite as many triggers of the alert. The other option here is to go ahead and modify your settings. Now, the issue becomes here is that you are somewhat limited in the drop-down menu with the options you have here. You get a big jump from 30 days to 60 days. And the issue with that is that Patch Tuesday, which is when Windows patches are released, is generally going to be somewhere between 30 and 60 days from the previous month. And so you're likely to end up with some element of false positives here when you use the 30 days option, because just naturally you're going to end up in a situation where it's been 32 or 34 or 36 days since the last Patch Tuesday when patches were released. And so this is kind of that liminal space in between Patch Tuesdays that can create these false positives here. The downside is that your only other option is 60 days. And so that then takes you up to being 2 months out of compliance. This cuts down on the noise, but it also cuts down on your signal. And so this is the trade-off that you have to make, which is, are my patch alerts for 30 days? Is that causing me, greater or less hardship than if I switch over to 60 days, where I'm potentially missing some devices and some devices may go longer without being patched, but I'm trimming out a lot of the noise. And when I see one of these alerts, it's a red alert issue. If this was a 60-day alert right here, I would say the severity is critical, the priority is high, and I am running automations right here to both scan as well as apply for patches like this. So that's kind of one of the most frequent alerts that we see in our environment is this no patch installed. Part of that is deliberate. This is a demo environment. We try to make it so that our sellers have things to show that makes it look like NinjaOne is actually working. I'll say, one thing that's difficult is when NinjaOne is working perfectly, it looks like nothing. It looks like everything's green, everything's good to go. And so we kind of deliberately introduce some things in here that make it look like NinjaOne is doing stuff, just so the sellers can show it when they are giving demonstrations. But this, I think, is a good example of that trade-off that you have to make in terms of signal versus noise. What is causing you more hardship? Is it the false noise that creates issues that you feel like you can never get ahead of? Or is it the fear of falling too far behind in the patching window and not having patches installed that keeps you up at night? The fact that something might get missed. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Jonathan. Sound like you were.
Thanks, Jeff. I just wanted to pause and take maybe see if we can don't interrupt your flow too much, but answer a couple of questions that folks have asked. And this gets back to the kind of a theme I've heard a lot, which is, man, my beautiful dashboards, things are showing red when obviously that's going to get attention and everything. In some of those cases, I really am not too worried about the red. I just want to make it go away. And this is one of those cases. So Troy says, can we mute health alerts for machines that are shut off long-term? Tired of seeing that server down red status for the machine in the dashboard.
Yeah, so I'll talk about two different options here. One, the first option doesn't solve your particular issue, but I do want people to be aware of it, which is maintenance mode. It's the ability to put a device into maintenance mode like this. We can go ahead and add in our maintenance window. You can have that start now, start at a custom time, and then also end either indefinitely, never turns off, or it can end at a specified date and time right here. And this would suppress all of this stuff right here. However, this does not impact the server down metric on the dashboard. We're still going to show that server as being offline. So there is a workaround for you to get that, to remove that false positive there. So we're going to go into the devices, we're going to go into roles, and we're going to go down to the bottom of our manage devices section here. And you can see that we have an option here for offline VM. I think in a different environment, I've called it temp down server, but I would create it right here under my Windows workstation. So I'd create it as probably a desktop here. And so let's just go ahead and do it. We'll say temp down server like so. Now that I've created that, I go back to my devices menu. I don't have any offline servers here. I don't think. Yeah, no. And so if we come back in here, we'll find the AD server. We'll do this right. And I will edit the device role and I will change it from a server role into a workstation role that I've named temp down server. Because I'm now classifying this as a workstation, that means that it is going to no longer register as a server inside of the NinjaOne dashboard. So you would no longer see that false, I shouldn't say false, but irrelevant down server alert on the main dashboard. As a caveat to that, just so before you go doing that, without doing any further investigation, one thing to pay attention to is policies. Obviously, when you change the device role, that's going to change the mapping that we see right here. So you may want to go ahead and have a sort of no settings policy like I have right here with nothing on it, so that when the policy gets changed for that offline device, just like nothing gets changed for it. And then when you switch it back to it's proper server role, it just goes back on its normal policy whenever it's back online. But just trying to prevent the issue of a server's offline until it isn't, comes back online and goes, I've got a different policy and it's a workstation policy and not a server policy. Just trying to avoid that, you know, little handoff there. So I would, in your situation, it sounds like you want to put the device in maintenance mode. You want to shift it over to this temp down server role. You want to make sure that you modify your organizational policy mappings right here so that your temp down server right here is going to something like a no settings policy. So that way, when it comes back online, it doesn't start doing a whole bunch of weird workstation stuff instead of weird server stuff.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeff. And here's one more. Speaking of maintenance mode. So can maintenance mode be set as a machine to reboot by technician, user, or automation, and the MM ended after a reboot is complete, and the maintenance mode ended after the reboot is complete? And if you need some more context there.
Yeah. I don't think that would be possible. And the reason I say that is because the only method that we would have in order to take a device out of maintenance mode in a non-scheduled fashion would be to run a script. The problem is typically when you put your device into maintenance mode, you would be disabling things like automations. And so you wouldn't have the ability to say, well, at system startup, go ahead and run the disable maintenance mode automation, because by having this feature suppressed, it's not going to actually run. So I don't think that there's a way to do that. I think the only other option there would be to use the API.
And it might be useful too to figure out what the goal is there too. Maybe there's another way to get around. So
and I'll also say I did not understand the first bit about maintenance mode being set as a machine to reboot. I'm assuming you just mean, can you reboot that device while it's in maintenance mode and then have it come out of maintenance mode? Well, but one thing again is if it's in maintenance mode, it might be ignoring any reboot command that you're issuing from NinjaOne if you have that automations suppressed in maintenance mode.
Yeah, so Thibix, if you're still around and you're watching, maybe give us some more information. We can get into that in the end. But Jeff, let's get back to it. Is there anything else you wanted to share here?
Yeah, absolutely. We're in a fortunate place here at the devices menu because I wanted to go ahead and take some of those custom fields that we saw earlier and actually add them as columns here so that you can view some of that information we saw earlier at scale and then also use it in your reporting as well. So if we go down here, let's go ahead and look for alert. We have device alert rank. We have the total number of alerting devices, and then we have our total conditions triggered here. So let's go ahead and do it like this. And I will go ahead and save this. And so now from my view here, let's go ahead and unselect all these. You can see that I have all of that information that we previously saw at the individual device level. Here I'm seeing it at the uh, overall device level. So I'm seeing it across many different devices. And so here I can see total conditions triggered, only 3 right here. That ranks 17th out of the 31 total devices that triggered an alert over the previous month. Obviously, if we go down here, we start to see greater and greater numbers. But this just gives us that sort of at scale view here. I could go ahead and say, well, show me only my Windows devices, just as an example here. And so here you can see all of our Windows devices. Some of them haven't triggered alerts because they've been offline in maintenance mode, like we just talked about. But then all these ones that have been online, you can see, hey, only one condition here, a lot for Grant's workstation, a lot for Spencer's workstation. And so this sort of gives us an idea of where we can pay attention to. One idea that I had kind of right before this meeting that I have not had a chance to implement yet is basically doing this by like quartiles or quintiles in terms of how bad is your device in terms of the alerts that trigger. And so I'm going to add in a different custom field here that's going to be just like quintiles, and it'll be 1 through 5. If you're in 1, you're in the top 20% of alerts that have triggered over the past 30 days. If you're in quintile 2, you're in the top 40%, or I guess the second quintile there, in between 20 and 40%. And so that would just give you the ability to more easily triage which devices have the greatest number of conditions right here. Another option here is that I've created these custom fields as integers. These 3 right here, I think they're all integer type custom fields, which gives me some good options here when it comes to filtering. I can say I want to see where I have greater than 100 total conditions that are triggered here. And so right there, I can see only these 3 devices have had more than 100 conditions triggered over the past 30 days. And so this is a nice way for me to limit down to the most problematic devices and address them first before starting to worry about the lesser ones. And then if we go in here into Spencer's workstation right here, we can go ahead and look at the device alerts. We can see that it is the most alerting device out of all of these or in this environment. We can see that there are, again, several different conditions here that are triggering that make it such a problematic device. Our old friend low disk space we talked about, the user-initiated log-off activity that I think I should get rid of, no OS patch installed in the last 30 days. We can see start menu experience host has stopped working right here 68 times. Might be something that we want to investigate further there. Disk active time, only 1 occurrence of that alert. And then this device being offline, again, only happened 1 time over the previous 30 days. So yeah, I think that this is a good way for you to sort of get a handle on where you are seeing the most alerts and the greatest alerts. But I want to go ahead and shift gears a little bit and talk about a common alert or a common situation that I hear a lot about that actually isn't going to appear in anything that we've talked about so far.
All right, before you do that, Jeff, I think this is a great time for me to pause you there for a second and just mention, you as you saw, right? It totally makes sense within a organization. You're seeing some commonalities, some patterns in terms of what's triggering the most types of alerts, kind of over and over again. I'm curious in the chat if people have, what are the common alerts that you all are seeing? And if that's something, if we're all doing this on the Discord server, for example, and kind of with Jeff's help of showing, making this process a lot easier, maybe we can start sharing some more information too, and picking up some trends, and can issue out some reports or common things that everyone's seeing, and able to benefit from the fact that we're not operating in silos here. Everybody can share information together and help each other out. Okay, and so before you move on, one other thing. So Lonnie, thanks Lonnie for writing back and clarifying. So he said what he meant was when a machine's going to reboot, regardless of how it's being rebooted, can maintenance mode be set prior to that and ended after the reboot is complete? And then he gave this other context too, Jeff. The reason why is when reboot happens, he's seen an alert about services stopping. That's just noise.
Gotcha. The only way I can think to have that happen, Lonnie, is just to kind of do things in sequence, unfortunately. And so the answer here might be to go ahead and do a reboot of the device. So we'll go ahead and do reboot, reboot now. And then as soon as you hit reboot now, just go and configure maintenance mode and have maintenance mode end in 5 minutes from now, or 10 minutes from now, like that. And so now when I'm rebooting that device, it's going to reboot. I'm going to miss all those service stopping notifications, and then it's going to be taken out of maintenance mode on a scheduled basis. So you shouldn't miss any of your alerts. So I know that's a bit inconvenient there, but that's really the only way I can think to kind of alleviate that. The other way is specific to patching. There is an option inside of patching right here to go ahead and put the device into maintenance mode as a part of the patching process. So if this is strictly about patching reboots, I think this will help you. If this is just about manually initiated reboots from the technician side, you would have to do what I mentioned earlier. So some possibility here, but we do have some limitations, and depending on how it's being initiated.
Thanks, Jeff. And thank you, Lonnie. All right, let's get into
what we're talking about
here. Yeah.
So one of the things that is not going to show up in any of the stuff that I've just mentioned, and it might be the single most common issue that many of us deal with, is failed patches. And that is because inside of conditions here, you'll note that there is not a single condition here or a way to monitor for when there is a failed patch. You just have to see the notification on the dashboard, like I am right here. I got failed OS patches. I can see it's on this device right here. I can go and then look at my failed patches on this device to kind of see what is the reason or the error code for why this failed. But it doesn't create a ticket. However, if you are interested in, let me take it out of full screen mode here. If you are interested in a failure generating a ticket, I do have another API server workaround for you. It is the patch status sync that you see right here. Create 3 custom fields: pending patches, approved patches, and failed patches. And then this script will go ahead and parse the API looking for where there are pending, approved, and failed patches. It writes it into a custom field for each of those devices there, which means if I go into a policy like this, I would have the option to go ahead and say, wherever I have a custom field that contains a failed patch, and I did not set it up in this environment, so we're just going to use visualization for a few seconds. You can go ahead and say, anytime there's a failed patch on this device, that creates a ticket. So that would be a workaround way for you to create a ticket from a failed patch. However, you don't have to do that in order to start taking action on failed patches. Let's go to our devices right here. And I want to go ahead and show how we can try applying failed patches for both software patching as well as operating system patching in an automated way to try and reduce some of the patch failures that you see in your environment. And so the very first thing we're going to do is limit down to a type of device. I would say generally people are going to want to handle servers and workstations differently, simply because this process does involve a reboot and reapplying patches. And I can understand that doing that on a workstation, at any point in time, you're probably okay with that in most scenarios. Doing that on servers, less so. You have to be much more discerning there. And so we'll do our workstations first. We will then go to more filters, and we'll type in OS patching enabled. So we're only going to apply this to devices that have patching turned on in NinjaOne. And then we're going to type in OS patches and find another filter here. And we're going to look for where it contains a failed patch, like this. You don't have to select a failed patch, just the presence of a failed patch. And so we'll go ahead and add that right there. We've got our one device that has a failed patch here. And we'll go ahead and save this. We'll say this is failed Windows workstation patches, and we'll save that. So now we're going to go into administration. We're going to go to tasks, and we are going to create a failed patch. I'll say OS patch. Apply, like so. We want to make sure we allow groups, like right there. And then we can select when we want this to happen. Again, because this is a workstation, I'm going to say it can happen every single day. We are just going to go ahead and set this so that it runs a little bit later at night. Let's do 11:45 p.m. Now, obviously, if the device is not online at 11:45 p.m., it is not going to run. It's going to wait until the next day at 11:45 p.m. and hope that the device is online then. Now, in terms of automations, we are going to go ahead. Actually, before we do that, let's do our targets. And so we'll select the group that we just created. My group right here. You can see we already have it, devices with failed OS patches there, but I'll use the failed Windows workstation patches group we created, and I'll add that. Then I'll add my automations. And so my very first automation here is going to be the OS patch scan. And so we'll use the Windows OS patch scan right there. We will then go ahead and do a reboot. Now you can force the reboot like I am right here, and this will just reboot the device automatically. You could also use the display pop-up script if you want to go ahead and encourage the end user, should they be working at 11:45 p.m. at night, to reboot their device gracefully. And you can just use the restart reminder right there, check that box. And then you can go ahead and I think add in a timer right here so that it'll go ahead and reboot automatically after a certain number of minutes, I believe. Oh, in seconds, never mind. So we'll go ahead and say 120 seconds right there. And then right here, maybe the command is shutdown/R, as I believe what, yeah. That should get us to reboot the device. So that's another option there if you kind of want to give a little bit of a warning to the end user. Again, if you think nobody is going to be awake at 11:45 p.m., let alone working, then you can just go ahead and do kind of a Ninja-initiated reboot that gives no control over the reboot to the end user. In my case, that's what I'm going to do. And so we'll do a reboot there. We'll then do a patch apply. And I'm not going to do another reboot after this because I am assuming that the patching settings in policies would handle the reboot based off of the reboot options. Now, the nice thing about this will try every single day. It's automatically looking for patches, evaluating the state of the device, and then it's going to reboot, and then it's going to go ahead and apply those patches. So I think that this is a great way to go ahead and take out some of those failures that often turn into tickets that require a lot of time investment. In this method, you're just going and, kind of trying sort of the baseline first step that you are okay with, scanning for patches, rebooting, and then going ahead and applying the patches again. So we can go ahead and duplicate this. I'll discard this. I don't want to save that. But we could duplicate this with software patching as well. We could go ahead and do Windows desktop and laptop. Let's do software patching enabled. Let's do, whoops, I reset my filters. We'll do software patching enabled. We'll do Windows workstations right there. Oh, there we go. That's my problem. We'll do the same thing where we're looking for any failed software patches right here. Luckily, we don't have any in this environment, but I can still go ahead and say these are failed Windows workstation software patches. Very, very similar workflow here. Go into tasks, create a task, create your target, or select your target, which is the group we just created, and then add in your automations. In this case, very similar workflow. You might want to scan for any new patches. You might want to reboot the device, and then you want to go ahead and scan for patches again, and then either rely on your software patching reboot options or have another reboot occur to finalize the installation of the patches. But I think this is a very good baseline measure, just having these tasks that are automatically retrying patching on any devices with a failed patch. The obvious issue there is that you need to go ahead and make sure that you're only enforcing that across devices where that's okay. You have to know when it is okay to reboot devices out of band, whether that's for servers, whether that's for workstations. I'm used to scenarios where this really would not be too big of an issue, but I know especially as a managed service provider, you have a variety of clients, and not every client is going to be happy with sudden reboots to workstations, and especially with sudden reboots to servers. So this is just something that you want to have some thought put into before you set up the actual tasks. But this, I think, is the most effective way to address one of the single biggest ticket drivers that I have heard of from people who work on the help desk, which is failed patches of both software patching and of operating system patching. I think this sort of baseline task right here, I would hope would eliminate a majority, if not a plurality, of those failed patches that you're seeing. So one last thing to talk about, since I know I'm coming up on time here, but there was a sixth custom field that I mentioned that we did not discuss quite yet. And it is this one down here, the device alert summary. This just shows you alerts, and then it will show you, I believe it's only current triggered alerts, but it will show you the last 30 days of this triggering. And so right here, I can see no OS patch installed in 30 days. I can see, right here, this little red indicating this alert triggering. That's where the 30-day mark happened. That's where all of a sudden we crossed that 30-day threshold. And then from here on out, I've had this be an active alert on this particular device here. So this is just a nice little visualization that shows you not just the fact that you have an open alert. You're going to have that here, obviously. It shows you how long that alert has been open, which I think is useful. And the whole point of this exercise, I think, is just to make sure that you have the data at your fingertips so that you can make better decisions, more informed decisions. So yeah, I hope that this gets you most of the way there. All the scripts that I've mentioned here today, this one down here, the device alert summary, this is from Luke Whitelock, is a product manager here at NinjaOne. Go to the documentation right here, and then the enhanced alerts. I will go ahead and I don't know if I can put something in the chat.
You can put it into, well, I think I've actually got it here. I've got Luke's site, and I'll drop that. You can also put it in our private chat here. Yeah, perfect. Thank you. All right. So there's that. And Jeff, do you want me to share? I also have your a link to your GitHub. Do you want me to share that as well?
Yep, go ahead and share that as well. And then sometime later today, after I clean up my code, it's very rough right now for everything I showed you, works, and that's about it. But once I clean it up and I make it look nice and pretty, I will post it on my GitHub, and I will shoot it over to Jonathan, who will probably add it to the description of this YouTube stream.
Yes, absolutely. And let me just pull this up. I'll grab the one that you shared from Luke. And I'll share that here too. Okay, great. So, Jeff, thank you so much for doing this and making all these scripts available, these walkthroughs. I'm sure the folks here found that valuable. I love that you went through basically how to get visibility into, okay, what exactly are these alerts and how to deal with some of those, and especially the patching example at the end there, because that is a common source of fatigue for folks. So we've got before we jump, we got Oscar here, and for everyone else who's online watching, last call for questions. Anything else you want to ask Jeff on this topic while we got him? And while we're waiting for that, Oscar, thanks for being on and asking this question, or pointing this out. In fact, he says something that would greatly reduce noise for me is that if conditions would only create tickets if the condition is still triggered after the automations associated with it ran. And then he gives an example. So using the service as an example, a condition to notify on a service being down, automation to automatically restart the service. If the service is still down after the automation, generate a ticket then.
Yeah, I totally see the value in that. 100%. Our system is just architected slightly differently to where it opens the alert and the corresponding ticket first. And then the idea is if the automation is successful, then we're going to resolve the ticket that got created from that. I know it does create this additional noise here, but it also means I think that things are less likely to get missed, which is key for us. However, as always, there is usually a workaround that you can do in order to make this work. And so one thing that I like, especially for service monitors, is if we go into a workstation right here, I've got a workstation policy. I'm alerting on a service. When that service goes down, I am running a script over here to start the service back up. And then right here, I have the when no longer met option enabled. This is what would reset the alert if it wasn't, already set. To be a little bit more granular here with, determining basically if this doesn't work, then I want to create a ticket. what I would do here is I'd actually disable ticketing. I wouldn't create a ticket from this condition right here. What I would do is add in another script right here. And this script would be checking to see if that service is in an operational state. And if it's not, it writes into a custom field, so-called like service monitor or something like that. And so I would have another condition here monitoring a custom field so that if any of my service monitors don't work, or the response, the remediation automation does not successfully start the service back up, that second script will say, hey, it didn't work. We didn't start the service back up. Your service is still offline. And so that right there, this would be what actually creates your ticket. It is the secondary layer there that says, hey, your first monitor didn't create a ticket, but it also didn't work. And therefore, we're using this second condition here to point you to the original condition that is actually the one that's not working. So absolutely a workaround, not something that is native functionality here. But I do think that if you're looking to kind of have your remediation automation happen first, you don't want to have a ticket happen. Just turn off all the ticketing functionality, but add in a second script. And this works great for services that just says, is that service running? And so if that service is not running, it just says, hey, this service is not running into a custom field. It can append to it so you're not overriding any other custom field data that was already written into it from other service monitors. And then that would be what actually creates your ticket. It seems counterintuitive. I guess it kind of is a little bit, but it is, I think, a way you can use the Ninja system to reduce the noise and still get those critical alerts that you need to have.
There's always a workaround.
There's always a workaround.
Jeff, thank you so much. And before we all jump here, thank you, everybody. First of all, Lonnie, I totally agree. Jeff is the king.
Lonnie and Jonathan, you are too kind, both.
Thank you for taking the time. Thank you for sharing all of your knowledge, as always. For those who are in Canada, you have noticed that you have NinjaOne 12.0 with just released, I believe, Tuesday night, overnight. And quickly, the way that, if you're new to the NinjaOne release process, starts with Canada. Quickly, we have APAC coming out, and then EMEA a couple weeks later in North America after that, or the US. And so 12.0 is coming out. And as with any of our major releases, we want to give you all the details on all the goodies that are included in that, all the new capabilities and features and functions. And of course, a great person to give you all that information is right here with us, Mr. Jeff Hunter, the King, Our Majesty. So he is actually, I just wanted to drop a couple of links here, and I'll share my screen really quickly. He is going to be doing a couple of webinars. You're back on, first of all, back tomorrow to start things off for the APAC folks.
I think this is actually getting postponed.
Oh, no. Well, okay. So maybe not tomorrow. I was going to ask what time you have to be up, Jeff, to do the APAC webinars too.
We could talk about that offline.
Well, at any rate, we have in EMEA, we've got next Wednesday, March 4th. We've got York, who's going to be delivering news about the 12.0 updates. So you can sign up here. I'll drop links to this all in the YouTube description. This will all be posted in our Discord too. And then, of course, with any of the major releases, as Jeff pointed out, dates are subject to change depending on how the rollout goes and everything. But as of now, we've got February 26th for the webinar that's going to cover 12.0 for our US-based customers. And we also, in addition to that, we'll have 12.0 week, where it's a series of live streams that we'll be doing right here on YouTube, where the product managers will be taking a little bit deeper dives on some of their individual product areas and letting you know what's new. So Oscar is he's digging into the different features of 12.0 that he got access to. Our friends to the north, we love to have them be not guinea pigs. We love to have them get things early. So Oscar, let us know what you think. If you're not a member of the Discord yet, you should be. And you can do so by clicking on the QR code. We'll also drop a link. But as always, thank you everybody for hopping in. We build NinjaOne based off your feedback. It becomes the tool that you want based off you guys being vocal. So thank you for joining streams like this, joining the Discord, letting us know, keeping those conversations going. Let us know what you want to see, what you like, what you don't. And Jeff, as always, thank you so much for taking time.
Always happy to help out.
All right, everybody, take care and have a good one. We'll see